Welcome to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here with us. Right now, somewhere in the world, someone is lying awake at 3 a.m. They're just staring up at the ceiling, carrying this invisible weight, and wondering why their life feels like it's completely falling apart. And hey, maybe that someone is you. Maybe you recently lost a job, maybe a really important relationship just ended, or maybe you're just completely exhausted from carrying a burden that nobody else can even see.
And in that heavy silence, this one universal question almost always creeps in, right? Why is this happening to me? It's a completely natural human response whenever we're facing grief or illness or loss. But today, we aren't going to rely on empty motivational quotes to get through it. Instead, we're going straight to the source material, the Quran and authentic hadith, to uncover exactly how these texts answer that question and why patience is actually framed as this incredibly profound gift.
Okay, let's dive into this. When we're hurting, our absolute first instinct is usually that this hardship is just some random punishment. But when you dive into the source texts, it reveals a vastly different reality. It's actually divine preparation. You aren't being punished at all, you are being uniquely prepared for something greater. Let's look at exactly how the source material establishes this idea.
Take a look at the very specific phrasing in this powerful verse from Surah Al-Baqarah. Notice how it doesn't say if you will be tested. It explicitly says, "We will surely test you." Tests are literally guaranteed. They are a fundamental feature of the human experience. So right off the bat, this proves that being tested does not mean you've been abandoned by God. It simply means you're human, you're alive, and your spiritual endurance is actively being built.
And this guarantee of being tested builds directly into this really fascinating pattern. Why the number 2? Well, in Surah Ash-Sharah, the divine promise of ease isn't just casually mentioned once. It is given exactly twice, back to back. This repetition is huge. It's deliberately placed there to signal absolute, unshakable certainty to anyone reading it.
Just listen to the exact phrasing here. For indeed, with hardship comes ease. Indeed, with hardship comes ease. Scholars of the Arabic language point out a truly fascinating linguistic detail in these verses. See, when a general noun like hardship is repeated in the specific grammatical way in Arabic, it refers to the exact same singular hardship. But when it's paired with the word for ease, it's actually understood as meaning multiple, totally diverse forms of ease.
So what does this all mean? The crucial takeaway is profound. One singular hardship, multiple doors of relief. It's such a beautiful discovery hidden in these verses. While the pain or the stress you're going through might feel incredibly singular and sharply focused on you, the divine mercy and the avenues of relief are going to come through many different, totally unexpected avenues. Your pain is singular for sure, but the relief is not.
And this brilliantly illustrates what we see throughout history in the texts, specifically with the trial of Prophet Ayub, who you might know as Job in English traditions. He endured immense, debilitating illness and just devastating loss for years. He experienced the very absolute depths of what it means to suffer, both physically and emotionally.
Yet, despite all of that immense suffering, listen to how he responds in the Quran. He simply says, "Indeed, adversity has touched me, and you are the most merciful of the merciful." He never stopped turning to God. And because he maintained that profound, unbreakable trust, this connection ultimately led directly to his hardship being completely removed and absolutely everything he lost being fully restored.
Now consider another incredible historical timeline, Prophet Yusuf's journey. First, he gets betrayed by his own brothers. Then, he's thrown into a dark well. Then, sold into slavery. And finally, falsely imprisoned for years. I mean, in the moment, every single one of those chapters looks like an absolute, undeniable tragedy. But what the source text reveals is that every single painful event was actually a strictly necessary step. These trials were perfectly placing him exactly where he needed to be to eventually save an entire nation from famine and reunite with his family.
Which brings us to a fundamental lesson that is repeated throughout all the stories of the prophets. You simply cannot see the full picture while you are inside the trial. When you're sitting at the bottom of the well or locked in the prison, all you can see is the darkness of that specific moment. Understanding the deep wisdom behind the pain often only comes in hindsight. And in the interim, it requires an immense amount of trust that your timeline is heading exactly where it needs to go. This exact mindset is perfectly summarized in a really profound hadith from Prophet Muhammad. It says, "How wonderful is the affair of the believer, for his affairs are all good. If something bad happens to him, he bears it with patience, and that is good for him." I really want to emphasize the word all here. Not some of the affairs, all of them. Embracing this mindset completely transforms your reality. It turns both comfort and hardship into distinct,
purposeful paths for your own spiritual growth.
But to actually achieve this mindset, we need to deconstruct a key term used constantly in these texts, and that is sabr. We almost always translate it simply as patience, but the text actually defines it as something much deeper than that. It's active spiritual endurance. It is a highly engaged discipline, not just some passive state of being.
Islamic teachings actually break this discipline down into three very specific dimensions. First, you have patience in obedience to God. Second, patience in avoiding sin, especially when the temptation is really strong. And third, patience during trials and loss without complaining against the divine decree. So it's absolutely vital to understand that sabr is a multifaceted discipline. It touches literally every single part of your life.
And honestly, this reveals a massive societal misconception we have. We tend to view patience super passively, like it's just waiting it out with a fake smile, suffering in silence. But the active reality of Islamic sabr is deeply engaged. It means you are praying, you are making dua, which is actively calling out in supplication, and you are actively trusting God's plan while you keep moving forward.
So, what does this active sabr actually look like in your daily practice? Well, step 1, you continue praying even on the days you really don't feel like it. Step 2, you keep making dua even when the answer feels like it's miles away. And step 3, you fulfill your daily responsibilities. You just keep showing up for your character, your job, and your family, even when your heart is incredibly heavy. You are actively walking through the trial, not just sitting in it.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the unbelievable promise it holds. It states, no fatigue, nor disease, nor sorrow, even if it were the prick he receives from a thorn, but Allah expiates some of his sins for that. This is spoken with absolute, unwavering conviction. It literally guarantees that absolutely no pain is ever wasted. Not a single sorrow, not even the tiny prick of a thorn. No way.
So the core takeaway from that beautiful promise is simply this. Pain is currency. Pain is purification. The source material is assuring us that if you bear difficulty with active patience, you are literally transforming a difficult, exhausting day into disguised mercy. You are actively building spiritual currency that purifies you.
And hey, this isn't just nice-sounding theory. It is historical reality. Just look at the legacy of the companions of the Prophet. These people endured crushing poverty. They endured war. They endured exile and tremendous loss. But through their active patience, they formed the unshakable foundation of a spiritual empire and a legacy that has lasted well over 1,400 years. Their preparation was immense, simply because their legacy was destined to be monumental.
Which brings us to the end of our explainer today. And I really want to leave you with this powerful, provocative question. If you are not being punished, but you are being prepared, what is your current hardship preparing you for? I really want you to take a moment and reflect on that. Try to find that hidden meaning in your current struggles. Thank you so much for joining me to explore these incredible texts today. I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts, so keep reflecting, keep seeking knowledge, and I'll see you in the next explainer.